Ladies and gentlemen, the Newton Nomadic Theater presents Story Slam.
My name is Jen. I've lived in Newton for close on to 20 years now, and in 2006, April 15th, tax day, we had the taxes all in the envelope ready to take down to the post office in the morning. About 2 a.m., I found myself suddenly awake when I had been very soundly asleep. And that can be very disconcerting. I didn't know why I was awake. My husband was awake as well. He leaped out of bed, snatched his robe off the back of the door, and headed for the exit to our bedroom. And I was starting to process. I think I heard something. I heard a noise. And so I looked out of the window next to the bed. I looked out into the yard. I thought perhaps a car had crashed on the street. It happens where I live with some regularity. I didn't see anything. I looked down. We were on the second floor, so what I'm seeing is at ground level, and I couldn't understand it. It was the front end of a car. And I didn't know what to make of that, because there shouldn't be a front end of the car there. That shouldn't be possible. And so I got my robe and headed for the stairs as well, and I realized I was starting to sense a smell, some sort of smell. I couldn't identify it. And I headed towards the stairs, and I was starting to hear a voice from downstairs. My husband was talking to somebody. And I'm belting on my robe, and I'm heading for the stairs, and I'm confused, and it's dark, and there's beginning to be a sort of a smoke or something. I can see something in the air, but I don't know what it is. And I come down to the stairs, and I turn the corner to the living room that's directly underneath of our bedroom, and the front of the house is gone, and there's a car in the living room. The back end of the car is on our carpet, and the front end of the car has gone past the living room through the neighboring wall out into the yard, which was what I was seeing from above. It was extremely surreal, and I'm starting to get shaky, and I'm starting to have the adrenaline rush, and my husband is shouting at this man, "You're not okay, your car is in our living room, you're not okay." We live down the street from the fire station. It takes very little time for emergency vehicles to arrive. Meanwhile, we're trying to keep this guy from getting up and walking out of the front wall of our house and leaving, because he's just crashed his car through our house. We want to make sure he's okay, and also that he doesn't get away. It was, of course, extremely shocking, and we had 3 ferrets at the time. We got them into their carry cage and left the house with them out to the side porch. I saw somebody standing next door to our house taking pictures, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? And I found out the next day he was our neighbor. He had been at the hospital on shift, and he came home from work to find all this going on. He came to take pictures in case it was something that might help us with insurance claims or we needed a record. It was actually very kind of him to do that. We called a friend, and once we had been checked out and everything was okay with us, we went to stay at the friend's house. We were there for about a week while we tried to figure out what we were going to do. It's not our home. We rent. We've rented for a very long time. So at the very least, putting together the house again was not our headache. We found a place in Central Square where we could camp out, basically, for the 2 months that it took to rebuild the house. The majority of our stuff stayed in the house. We could occasionally come back in and collect a suitcase of clothes or some particular piece of paper that we might need. We bought a new ferret cage so that we could set it up there and the ferrets would have somewhere to stay. And after 2 months, our house was rebuilt. We had renter's insurance, so we were able to replace our belongings. The landlord, of course, had insurance on the house, and the young man who crashed his car into our house, of course, was liable for paying for some of those damages. During the rest of that summer, I was trying to keep track of getting reimbursed for insurance was just a pain. You can imagine, a pain in the rear, but we did, so there was not a problem with it, but it was very all-consuming. It was very involving. And I went to court to see what happened to him. He was required to complete a alcohol-related, treatment of some sort, not a very lengthy one. He lost his license and was not allowed to drive for a period of time. He didn't have to go to jail. Things were not great for him, but he was unhurt. He had been at a Red Sox game, and then he had been at a bar, and on his way home, and he wasn't all that far from home, he fell asleep at the wheel, missed the curve, went over the sidewalk, through our fence, and then through our house. We moved back in, we got new furniture, we called a contractor and we said, do you have any big rocks? So we had a guy come and he brought us 4 boulders, 4 granite boulders. We named them Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan. And they now guard the front of our house. We had heard from neighbors who had had similar incidents happen to them that getting a guardrail put in can be an involved process. And so we figured, you know what, we'll put the rocks there. If anybody else comes through the fence, they're probably not going to go through the rocks. And then time went on, and we kind of forgot about it. The new living room was actually kind of better than the previous one. I didn't think about it much. And then this past fall, I'm home with my kids, and somebody knocks at the door. And I open the door, and I ask him, yes, can I help you? He said, yeah, I ran into your house. I'm thinking, oh, okay. He said, is now a good time to talk? I said, no, it's not a good time to talk. Can you come back another time? When my husband is here, would be better. And so he did. He came back a few days later, and during those few days, I had some time to think about what he might say and what I might say. That corner of the living room is actually a place where, at the time, my husband was spending a lot of nights sleeping. He's got restless legs. He didn't want to be waking me up. So he could easily have been killed. I was really traumatized for a long time, and then other things covered it up. And so I started thinking about when he wanted to make amends, because something else finally made him hit rock bottom, and he was doing the steps of the program. What could I say? And what I finally could say is that when I think back on that now, despite all the terror and the hard work and all of the things that were involved in coming back from that, camping out in that apartment in Central Square for 2 months was fun. I would never have lived there. I listened to a lot of baseball games while I played solitaire on my laptop. I don't think now about the bad parts of it. What I took away from it were the good parts of it. And so I don't think I really ever gave it a lot of thought, but when he came back all these years later, I realized that I must have moved on, and I left behind the bad parts.